Hey, what is going on, everybody? I am back with my latest video, and today I'm going to be diving into my top 5 quarterbacks I am looking to target in the later rounds of the draft as you get in those double-digit rounds. These quarterbacks I'm going to talk about today, according to fantasypros.com, as of last night, July 17th, just in case you guys are watching this video at a later date, and we all know how ADPs do change between now, training camp, and throughout the preseason, depending on some players and how they look. And some of the players I'm going to talk about, I would not be surprised if they crawl into the top 12 quarterbacks according to their current ADP on fantasypros.com. I'm going to go ahead and dive into this list. I'll go ahead and let you guys know these top 2 players they're more of upside guys I'm going for, because that's what I'm trying to usually target no matter what position group I'm drafting in the later rounds. I'm trying to find guys that got some upside maybe towards the back end of the year. Maybe they might not give you value at the beginning of the year, but I do talk about some veterans that are looking to rebound from last year that I can see that happening. But let's just go ahead and dive into the top name on my list. I'm going with the Colts rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson. Last year, his last season at Florida, he had 2,549 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. He also has that rushing ability, which is why he's the top name on my list, because I believe he's going to have a high floor with him. He had 654 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. And what I really like about him is like I said, the rushing ability, because we all got to remember he's going to struggle as a thrower in his first season for the Colts. He's going to have up and down performances, but interceptions don't really mean much, right, in fantasy football. So if he throws those picks, as long as he's maybe getting you guys 70 to 100 rushing yards a game and getting you guys a touchdown or two, that's a super high floor. And I always go back to the year Tim Tebow had that good year with the Broncos. Now, obviously, Anthony Richardson has a way better arm talent than Tim Tebow. But if you guys don't remember, Tim Tebow, including myself, won people fantasy football championships because of his rushing ability. And I think Anthony Richardson combined with Shane Steichen is going to give him a super high floor in his rookie season. Now, looking at obviously we also got to keep in mind Jalen Hurts had way more experience playing the position compared to Anthony Richardson at the time. But under the first season for Jalen Hurts underneath Shane Steichen in 15 games, Jalen Hurts had 3,144 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, and 784 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns. So you kind of want to like that. You can kind of see that where if Richardson can start at least all 17 games, he should be able to get to those marks. He should be able to get to the 3,000 passing yards, and I would say about 15 plus passing touchdowns, and then the floor of the rushing yards, right? He should be able to get 700 plus rushing yards and hopefully ideally 10 double-digit touchdowns on the ground for you as well. So that's where I'm betting on. Now, obviously, still has to be a determining factor if he's going to open the season for the Colts. I do write for Colts Wire. I follow this pretty closely, and just based on the words of Jim Irsay, Shane Steichen, and Chris Ballard after they draft, they understand he needs a play to develop. Now, you can understand the case where they may not want to rush him. But in my opinion, I think he's going to be the opening day starter, and I just think the Colts want to end the little streak that they're on, where it's like 5 years in a row where they have a different starting quarterback. By starting Anthony Richardson this year in the opening game instead of next year, you get rid of that streak. You don't have to hear the media talk about it. So that's why I think he's going to be out there as opening day starter. But just in case he's not, even if you want to maybe wait and see for Anthony Richardson to prove himself, since you can get him in the later rounds of the draft, maybe you do tie him with one of the veterans I'm going to talk about later in this video. So yeah, Anthony Richardson's the top quarterback to target in your double-digit rounds. Another rookie quarterback I'm looking to target, it's going to be Bryce Young for the Carolina Panthers. His last season at Alabama, he had 3,328 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He doesn't run the ball a lot. He had 185 rushing yards yards and 4 touchdowns. And what's going to help him succeed early is something that we've heard from the draft through OTAs now, is his mental processing ability, how he's going to have the playbook down. And while he doesn't have a like bona fide number one passing attack, he does have Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Terrace Marshall Jr., Jonathan Mingo, the rookie, Visca Chenault. We'll see. I kind of have to see about him. And then they also got Hayden Hurst as tight ends. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tommy Tremble steps up, because Frank Reich loves to use multiple tight end sets within his offense. And I think Frank Reich can get creative with the weapons that they have. And with Bryce Young as smart as he is, and where he's going to be able to distribute the ball and be basically a point guard for the Panthers offense, I think you're going to see them be able to pick up and move the chains. And we do know Frank Reich loves to go for it on 4th down. So if he's going to put that trust in Young and early and where he's going to go on those 4th downs, that means more opportunity for production for Young. And you also got to keep in mind, Andrew Luck had one of his best years underneath Frank Reich. He got the best out of Jacoby Brissett. He helped Phillip Rivers, who people are calling, basically done and washed when he left the Chargers, and he put together a good season and finished a high note underneath Frank Reich. And while the Wentz experiment ended in a disaster, you guys can't forget at the that first 2 to 3 quarters of the season, people thought Carson Wentz was looking competent and maybe has rebounded underneath Frank Reich. So he's kind of a quarterback whisperer, and combined with the smarts and the talent that Bryce Young is, I could see Bryce Young, having a offensive rookie of the year type year and being a quality starting fantasy quarterback for you this season. Now we are going to move into the veterans of the group, and it's kind of wild that Aaron Rodgers' current ADP is falling outside of the other top 12 quarterbacks that are ahead of him right now, according to FantasyPros.com. Now, obviously, he had a bad year last year, but keep in mind, it was his first season without Devontae. He was playing with very young wide receivers, and halfway through the year, he broke his thumb, and he was playing with a broken thumb, so of course that's going to affect his accuracy throwing the ball. Now, obviously, he has those 2 MVPs prior to last year, and since 2020, he has the 2nd most passing touchdowns with 111, and he has the 7th most passing yards. And then as far as the weapons within the passing attack, he's got Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, McCole Hardman, Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, and Randall Cobb as a very deep wide receiver room. And I think Garrett Wilson, Aaron Rodgers said it earlier this offseason, where Garrett Wilson reminded him of Devontae Adams. And I think between Wilson and Lazard, and then you got Hardman and Davis, we'll have to see Mims and Cobb what they can do. But that's a nice quality stable of wide receivers for Rodgers to rebound and bounce back from the performance that he had last year. And then they also got Tyler Conklin, CJ Uzomah, and we'll see if the 3rd round pick from last year, Jeremy Ruckert, can deliver as tight ends. So he has a stable of guys that he can throw the ball to, and then we'll have to see when Breece Hall can return. But Breece Hall is very effective as a receiving back, and they are one of the teams where Breece Hall's return is going to be lengthy. They might sign Dalvin Cook, and he can also help out in that passing attack. So I think the environment, I think a motivated Aaron Rodgers, I think you're going to see him bounce back, and I can see him finishing in that top 10 fantasy quarterbacks this year, and when you're getting him in the later rounds of the draft. That's assuming his ADP does stand where it is as we get closer to the season and we start to see this Jets offense throughout the preseason. Another veteran guy, Geno Smith, who had Mr. Comeback Player of the Year last year, who has turned his career around with Seattle. Seattle didn't go draft a younger quarterback. They are rolling back with Drew Lock as their backup, so that is putting a vote of confidence in Geno Smith. They gave him that great contract. Not great contract, but they gave him that contract extension. There is an out of it after this year. But with that being said, since 2020, he's very effective as a runner too. He has got the 9th highest rushing yard per average, 5.1 yards an attempt among all quarterbacks with at least 17 starts over the last 3 seasons. And then what I really like, where I can see Geno Smith giving you a nice floor of points every week, is the 3 weapons, right? DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett you could argue they can be wide receiver 1s on any other team if they weren't playing together. And then they got the top 1st round rookie this year, Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's going to work out of the slot. And I like the way that the Seahawks are going to be able to spread the ball with those 3 wide receivers at the same time. And then they got Noah Fant, who's who's a quality receiving tight end that can help stretch the field with his speed and ability to get open in the open field against slower linebackers. And then they did draft Zach Charbonnet, who can be a good third down back and be an effective receiving back as a complement to Kenneth Walker. So they just like I was talking about with Aaron Rodgers, the reason why I like Geno Smith in these later rounds, maybe combining Geno Smith with a Bryce Young and an Anthony Richardson while I wait for these young players to find their groove as rookies, I can have a Geno who I think is going to come out of the gates and give you a good quality high floor of points and have you some ceiling games too with the type of weapons that he'll have in that offense this year. Now the last guy, he's a controversial guy, but I've loved him his whole career, so I'm going to put my faith in him one last time, and also it's because Russell Wilson, I'll say his name, he's got Sean Payton, so I'm betting on Sean Payton is going to fix Russell Wilson's issues. In my opinion, I thought Russell Wilson started looking better after they fired Nathaniel Hackett last year, and his final game of the year, he had one of his best performances of the year. He had like 280 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. So you got to put the factor in that, maybe it was a lot of the coaching issue, and definitely was on Russell. He was terrible last year. But I think Sean Payton, he's not going to play nothing. He's not going to let Russell slide away with stuff. And I think Russell Wilson is a smart enough dude to understand that. And as long as he can run the offense, as long as Sean Payton fits and plays like Russell Wilson should be able to play, I think he's going to have a bounce back year. Now, since 2020, obviously you got to throw, last year was a disaster as it was, but he's been one of the top producing quarterbacks. He's got the 7th most passing touchdowns, the 8th most rushing yards among quarterbacks, and the 6th highest rushing yards per attempt, 5.4 yards among quarterbacks with 17 starts. So you have to keep that in mind. And then I like what he's working within the offense. As far as receivers, he's got Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick will be back from his injury. One of my favorite wide receivers from this draft class, Marvin Mims Jr. They also brought in Marquez Callaway, and they still got KJ Hamler on the roster. And then Greg Dulcich is going to be a good receiving tight end within Sean Payton's offense. And then we'll have to see when Javonte Williams will be back, but they did sign Samaje Perine, and he can help as a receiving back. And then Denver, to me, is kind of like a sneaky Dalvin Cook place where he could sign if Javonte is not ready to compete at the beginning of the year, if he were to end up on the PUP list. So that's something to watch for. But yeah, I'm just putting on the bet that Sean Payton is going to revive Russell Wilson. Also, by the way, I didn't mention Russell Wilson looks like he's lost plenty of weight. It looks like he's back to slim down Russell Wilson, which that makes me have even more of a belief that he can turn it around. And at the end of the day, guys, it's Russell Wilson. Everybody's going to have the memory of last year on their mind. So unless you are in a fantasy football league with a diehard Broncos fan that believes Russell is going to have a career year, you can likely get Russell in the last round or two of your draft. So like I mentioned, maybe you draft a Anthony Richardson or a Bryce Young, and then just in case the rookies are going to come out of the gate slow, I draft a Russell Wilson to have somebody I can alternate until those rookies are ready to take off and start to hit their stride and deliver for you later in the year. So yeah, those are 5 quarterbacks I am looking to target in the the later rounds of my draft throughout this next month and a half. My next video, I'm going to cover the running back position for you guys. I'm also going to do wide receiver and tight end, so you're going to see these videos over the next couple of weeks. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. As always, if you enjoyed this one, hit the like button, share the video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel or followed me on my profile, make sure you go hit the subscribe or follow button depending on where you guys are watching this. And then other than that, I'm gonna get off of here. If you guys have any comments, questions, hit the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.